You are tuned in to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. I'm your host, Lance White. Tonight, my guest is Dr. Richard Sauder, Ph.D. Richard is the author of 5 books and major reports, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit so that you'll get familiar with them. His latest book, published in 2010, is called Hidden in Plain Sight, Beyond the X-Files. It's his latest work on the secret world of underground bases and tunnels, which we'll be discussing tonight, among other things. The underground bestseller, Underground Bases and Tunnels, What is the Government Trying to Hide?, is his first work on the underground bases issue, published in 1995. The Esoteric Kundalini Tales, in 1998, deals with paranormal and mind control themes. Underwater and Underground Bases, in 2001, expands the scope of his earlier work to include military plans for manned bases and tunnels beneath the seafloor. The Sauder Report, Notes from the Underground, is soon to be made available and is a 770-page compilation of many of the raw technical, military, and government documents on which the nuts and bolts engineering aspects of his research are grounded. Links to his site and to his books for purchase will remain up on here, my site, the bio, for several days, so be sure to check it out. And on his website, he has numerous articles and free videos that back up and inform what we'll be talking about tonight. And I'm sure you'll want to get more into this, and you'll definitely want to have his book, Hidden in Plain Sight. So let's bring him out of the underground and welcome him to the live show right now. Hi, Richard. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Lance. How about yourself?
I'm okay. The chemtrails kind of got in my lungs today, but I'm surviving.
Well, you know, there are a lot of chemtrails, and it's disturbing. I hope that whoever is spraying them, and it appears to be a multi-agency effort, would stop it, because I have to believe they're full of substances that are hazardous to health.
Absolutely. Well, I just have to say that reading your latest book, Hidden in Plain Sight, Beyond the X-Files, is a eye-opener, and it's really, you know, I've done a lot of research on these various subjects. They call them conspiracy theories, but at this point I just consider it all fact. And the sky's the limit in terms of what is possible when you reach a certain point in learning about the matrix in which we live. It's a bottomless pit and a Pandora's box, which you were saying in one of your videos that I was just listening to before the show, largely is funded by black operations, theft, and there are trillions and trillions and trillions. I mean, you can't even imagine how much money is going into these projects. So
well, it's astronomical. And I want to slightly amend your opening comments here and say,
oh, okay, sure.
I have 2 new books this year. The second one is the Richard Sauder Briefing. Both of these books are linked at the bottom of your website if people want to go look. It's underneath my biographical information. And that book is available from Amazon.com. In that book, I lay out some of the massive ways in which we're being lied to. And that's one of the ways the ruling elite, the so-called powers that be, get over on us, is that they massively lie to us, feed us endless reams of misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, and outright fibs to our face, and they've been at it for thousands of years. And for the most part, people have swallowed the lies, amazingly enough, for year after year after year, for millennia after millennia. Well, until now, that is, each day, more and more human beings wake up to these lies. And I discuss these matters, some of these hidden projects, the ways in which they get over on us, and massively enrich themselves in the process at the same time that they are enslaving us economically, politically, socially, and in many other ways. And I don't know what to say except that if we don't do something soon, we are toast. And some of us, I mean, if there's a nuclear war, that'll be literal. A lot of us would be radioactive toast if that were the case. and we are really at a crucial crossroads in human history. You and I were talking just before we went on the air, and you alluded to the Hopi teachings that essentially said at this period of time, the human race would come to a crossroads in history, so to speak. And we either have to choose a better path or spiral down to a grim future of destruction and oppression. That's our choice. Frankly, we'll choose one or the other road. There's not really any viable middle ground. As some of your listeners may know and others may not, earlier this year I traveled to North Dakota and went over the fence onto a nuclear missile silo near Minot Air Force Base and staged a peaceful, nonviolent demonstration because we are at grave risk of global war this year, this fall, and this winter. And if we do have a global war, because of the level of armament and the large number of nuclear weapons in the hands of nation states, the United States and others, there's every possibility that some of those weapons, or God help us, maybe many of them could come into play. And if that happens, the outcome will not be pleasant, I promise you.
Yeah.
So I'm aware of this, and other people are too. I went directly to a nuclear missile silo and went over the fence, essentially to say, not my name. I'm putting my body and my life physically on the line. In other words, I went right to the site where nuclear weapons are deployed, and went over the fence onto a Minuteman nuclear missile silo and said, I vote no. You know, and what are you going to do? You're going to write a letter to the editor? Well, it may not even get published.
Right.
And if it does, comparatively few people will read it. Or you could write a letter to your congressman, and he certainly will not read your letter.
All right.
One of the junior members of his staff may or may not send you a, form letter in response. And that's about the extent of your redress in this system. So I took matters into my own hands, and I voted with my feet. I went directly to a nuclear missile silo and said, no. I know what you're planning to do. I know what these weapons can do. I know what the result will be if you carry out your plans and you use these weapons. And I beg to differ. I object. I don't agree. I personally vote against it with my life. And, of course, I was arrested for that. I was handcuffed and chained and criminally tried, and I spent over 3 months in jail in North Dakota. And I'm here to tell you that if more members of the human race don't wake up, and I mean not 10 years from now, I mean right now, this week, this month, this fall, we need to do if not a U-turn, a sizable turn from the direction in which we're headed, because all that is necessary for evil men to triumph is for good men and good women to do nothing or to remain silent. You know, under the law, if you're silent when there's a crime being committed, if you're silent or you do nothing, you are presumed to have acquiesced in the crime and to be an accomplice.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, here we are. We have knowledge that a great crime is being prepared. We even have knowledge that we have materially aided and abetted it by sending in our tax money to the government every April 15th. What do you think is done with that money?
Well,
what I'm saying is,
yeah.
if you are funding the system, if you are sending money into the system every year, you're helping to fund it.
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
So the system, there's a karmic question here then, for all of us who are tied up in this. If you send money into the system and they turn around and use that money to fund their operations, guess what? When they go forth and slaughter, using your funding in part, that karma comes back. I mean, it's like sticky glue, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that's the issue for this society as a whole. You get what you pay for. So it's time for us to ask, in fact, high past time, for us to ask, pardon my French, what the hell have we paid for? And the answer is, over the past half-century, among other things, this society has spent $5 trillion building up a huge nuclear arsenal with thousands of nuclear weapons, and they're ready to go. They're ready to go. That is a moral issue. So I voted against it. And what I'm challenging your listeners, if you don't want this to happen, if you don't want nuclear war, if you don't want the United States to just nuke the living bejeebus out of Iran or some other country, guess what? You need to do something. You personally need to do something. You need to say something. Silence isn't good enough.
Well, I agree with you. And there are many forms of protest that I think are going to be easy to figure out once the problem is identified. You know, one of the biggest...
I just identified one of the biggest problems on the planet. And I'll grant you, there are many different forms of protest, and there are many different forms of not cooperating with the system, which is just, it's diabolical, Lance.
Oh, I know.
Once you awaken to that, as a being with a conscience, with a human conscience, you're faced with the issue of, how do I not cooperate with this? How do I not go along with this? How do I vote against it, so to speak? How do I publicly object to it? Because we're responsible to do that. We really are.
Well, one of the problems that I think, I agree with you 100,000%, but one of the problems is that most people aren't even aware of what they're not aware of. Now, for instance, in your book, you have diagrams and plans of underground bases and maglev tunnels and things, which I'm certain exist all over the world, and you demonstrate that, and probably even more. And so all of these projects are absolutely beyond top secret, and nobody knows about them. They're covert.
Some people do.
Well, I'm just saying, yes, but those people aren't as important as the masses who are just watching Fox News and buying it and thinking that that's the world they live in. There's a whole underground, subterranean world with stuff that we can't even imagine.
Yes, that's the point, and it goes beyond this. There are many underground bases, and there are thousands of people working in them. There are all kinds of secret projects and programs going on down there, and also undersea facilities, as my latest research shows. But beyond that, there are many other, if you will, scams and schemes and secret projects and massive lying and propaganda campaigns that have been going on for decades or even centuries. And I discuss some of these other ones in my book, the Richard Sauder Briefing. So both of these books, for the uninitiated, I lay out, I give you approximately a little less than 300 pages of documented ways that these black projects and the powers that be have gotten over on us, and they're sucking trillions of dollars out of the global economy.
Oh, yeah.
They are absolutely impoverishing the human species on planet Earth.
Oh,
and in the process, they're also destroying the ecology.
Exactly. And they're using the money that they're demanding from us, which is turning us into third world country, which is used to enslave us. So it's really quite ironic.
In fact, that's the title of one of the opening chapters in my little book, the Richard Sauder Briefing. I entitle it, the planned economic enslavement of all humanity. The attempted economic enslavement of all humanity.
Well, we're enslaved right now. We were born into it.
Well, that's right. But you know what? The plan is to extend it to everyone on the earth, and that's why they go after these so-called Stone Age cultures in the Amazon or whatever. That's why the logging